were talking a little bit off mic about, and I've been having this conversation quite frequently about institutional knowledge and building on the work of the past so you don't have to work so hard. There were people here before us. The woman that was just Mrs. Clayton, who came, it was so regal, so beautiful, so just powerful. Before her was another 90-year-old plus man, Reverend James Lawson, also spoke. We were joking online about how young his voice was. He has, I called him Benjamin Button's ass voice, just very young in his 90s. And these people were civil rights activists who had done things that I didn't know about till today. And so it's incumbent upon us to definitely talk about the works of others, but to stand on their works and create the next layer of what needs to happen. What are your thoughts on that, Reverend Soares?
Well, there's no question about it. Just last night in Bible study, I was telling young people that if they really want to understand how strong we are and how much potential we have, they should talk to members of our church in their 90s. Jim Lawson was one of the leaders of the Nashville movement. And although we read a lot about Dr. King and we hear a lot about other famous people, Nashville, Tennessee was really one of the hot spots for black activism, Birmingham, Alabama. And Jim was one of the real forerunners. He was one of the tutors. He was one of the mentors of young guys like John Lewis. And we need to know more about that. We need to read more about our history because it gives us two things. One, it gives us the principles that should drive our activism today, but it also shows us the possibilities of what we can achieve. If they were able to do so much with so little then we should be able to do much more because we have more to work with today.
866-801-8255. As we put John Lewis to rest, I was thinking about who's next, who's up to bat next and what has to happen next. And, there's a lot of talk about politicians, all they do is, look out for themselves, especially in Congress. You've seen the last 40 years. It's like, what have they done? And I often say, we need people in all places. I'm glad and grateful that people are out in the streets for the last 60 plus days. I'm grateful all over the country still, even if the media is not covering it. They're still out there not quitting. We need people in Congress. We need people in the business world. We need people on the radio. We need people at news outlets finding out what's happening and uncovering the truth. We need people in all places to not give up the fight.
But we need people in places who believe that it is their responsibility to use their positions for the benefit of black people. We have too many people that benefit from struggle. They benefit from other people's sacrifices, and they get into these positions, and they think they're there because they're cute, they're smart, they're qualified, and they serve themselves only. And so we need people in positions, in politics, in radio, in sports, but we need people who understand that all of us are accountable to God and accountable to our ancestors for making our contribution to the greater good of black people.
When you say accountable to God, I winced a little bit, not because I personally love God. I personally live my life in that way. We talk off mic about that all the time. But there are people out there who just oh, here we go with that God thing. It's like, oh, here we go with that voting thing. There's always something that will allow somebody to check out. And so I'm challenged every day to talk in a universal way that, I'm not going to alienate anyone, but then I end up just doing it. Just telling it like it is and alienating people anyway. So it's like, okay, maybe that's not the thing I should be concerned with.
Well, don't use the word God, but somewhere along the line, a decision was made for me to be born, when I was born, where I was born, to whom I was born. A decision was made outside of me to make me me. I was black when I met myself. I didn't apply to be black. The forces of history and of the universe, of heaven and earth, made me black. And so I owe it, call God whatever you want to call God, but I owe it to whatever power greater than myself to do the responsible thing for who I am. I am a black man. I was black before I was a preacher. I was black before I was a millionaire. I was a black before I was in government. I was born black, and that comes with it a cosmic responsibility based on a historical continuum in my right now moment. Every black generation has had its unique obligation. Every Jewish generation has had its unique obligation. Every American generation I happen to be a black American, and since I didn't choose that, it was chosen for me. Call the chooser whatever you want, but at the end of the day, I am obligated to take seriously who I am and what that means.
Now we laid John Lewis to rest today, and he's one of the last of a dying breed. He's from a different era, he's from a different generation. What would be considered the previous civil rights movement, even though we're in a current one now. Karen asked about who's next. Do you think, being in the church, do you think we even need one as far as a leader or leaders are concerned versus a collective mindset?
No, we don't. We don't need the messianic leadership model. We need a very specific leadership model. I say that because, you see, in the civil rights era, all of the obstacles that black people faced were equal for all black people. And so black people couldn't vote, black people couldn't sit in front of the bus. We had a kind of all-black barrier. Today, the barriers are much more particular. They're much more unique. So we need leaders in justice. We need leading lawyers. We need leading radio personalities. We need leading scientists. We need leading educators. And so instead of having one major spokesman to speak to our total condition, we need specialists to speak to our particular condition. And in that sense, every category, every sector of our community needs leadership, male, female, charismatic, non-charismatic, to bring solutions to bear on the conditions that are specific to that sector.
We just got today, and I couldn't agree more with you than that. The economy, and we're going to talk about more with the economists that we have on later on the show. But I wanted to ask you this specific question. The economy has suffered a titanic 32.9% plunge. Unemployment, I think this is the last couple of days for that $600 a week payout that people are getting. The stimulus package has not been approved. We don't know where the next dollar is coming. For some people, it's going to be a really hellish couple of months coming down the pike. What do you say to people right now who have not planned, who don't have opportunities? What do you say to them right now?
Yeah, the same thing I say to those of us who have planned. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse for America. And we know that when it gets bad for America, it gets super bad for black America, which means that we need very smart people like the economists you have coming on to help us see the trends in healthcare. We know today, I think I said this last week, there are 1 million jobs in nursing available today, and that's before COVID-19, which means that we've got to figure out how some of us will retool and refocus and aim our futures at the healthcare industry. We know that there are going to be 10 million jobs that we can't fill in this country in technology. Artificial intelligence is answering our phones. Applications are doing our banking. And so what we have to do is align in our community, not on a macro level, but on a community, on a neighborhood level. We've got to align our resources with the opportunities, and with the momentum we have around Black Lives Matter, around social justice, we've got to demand that the healthcare systems in our neighborhood are not only serving us, but hiring us. We've got to demand that the prison systems are not only incarcerating us, but giving our small businesses contracts. We've got to have such a strategic emphasis that the slogans kind of fade away and the strategies take over.